with Vintage and Vinyl. I'll be spinning some rockin' 50s records every week here on my channel, as well as sharing some cool Coca-Cola collectibles and other neat vintage finds. Stay tuned! Hey guys, this is Katie with Vintage and Vinyl, back with another great video for you today. In this video, we are going to be talking about a topic that was brought up by a subscriber in the comments in one of my recent videos, and I thought it was a really great topic. She said that she was just a little bit lost in what to look for when shopping for vinyl. And I agree, that can be very, very overwhelming when you're out there and there's just thousands of records in a store, and it's hard to know exactly, you know, what to look for, what copies are good, what should I buy. So we're going to cover that in this video. I think this is a really good video for someone that's just getting into vinyl, and I hope you guys really do enjoy listening to vinyl, because I think that it is one of the best ways to experience music. There is nothing like pulling that record off the shelf and dropping that needle. There is just something so wonderful about that warm sound. So stick around with me. We're going to cover all of that right now. So the first thing that I want to mention when you go out to the different stores looking for vinyl is you want to buy quality vinyl. You don't want something that is scratched up to the point where you can't use it, because scratched records are really bad for your system. First of all, if they have a lot of dust and debris, that needle that's tracking the groove is going to push that dust down in further, especially if you just bought it and didn't even clean it and you put it on your system. That just can't be good. Second of all, the scratches are going to cause a lot of clicks and pops and static and extra noise. You're not going to enjoy the vinyl because it's just going to sound distorted and muffled and awful, and you don't want that. So you really want to buy good, clean copies. Now, if there's a few light surface scratches, I mean very light scratches on something, I would say that that's okay, because most of the time once you clean it, then kind of buff some of those out and it's not as bad. But if they're deep scratches or just tons of scratches and dust or mold or, you know, mildew that can get on records, you really just want to stay away. Even if it's a holy grail record for you, again, I would just keep looking, because you're not going to enjoy it. Now, if you want to get it because it's inexpensive and you want to do something with it creatively, then that is absolutely okay. I bought a $1 Fats Domino record here and I turned it into a clock. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because I want to show you the record. You see how scratched up that is and just dirty? I mean, even after cleaning it, there's no way you could play this record because it's just grody. I mean, it would just sound awful. So what I did was I paid the $1 and then I turned it into a really cool clock. Now notice I'm holding this record on the main area of the record here, the surface. That's a no-no. Now the reason I'm doing it with this is because it's a clock and it's not something I'm going to play. But you really want to hold the vinyl by the edges like this, so that you are not getting fingerprints and causing more dirt and debris onto the record. So I just thought that I would mention that in this video. But you see how scratched? I mean, you know, that's not even playable, and that's going to sound really horrible. So you don't want to buy something like that. That is the biggest tip I can give you, is to make sure that the record is clean. Really look at it. Take the time to look at it. And it doesn't mean that you can't get a good quality record for cheap. I mean, you can go to the antique stores. Goodwill has records sometimes, and sometimes, man, you can find a score for a really good price. I mean, a lot of the records that are 50s era I buy from antique stores, because bigger record stores just don't carry that. They don't market that, and a lot of them tell me they don't sell at all. So I tend to find those at the antique stores, because that's the kind of music most people, you know, I guess when they are cleaning out stuff, they might sell to those antique stores or antique dealers. And that's a really good place to get 50s records. But every one of them I have to pull out of the sleeve and carefully check. So I'm going to show you this Crew Cuts record that I got a little while ago, and I want to show you the record because it is in such good condition. And I bought this at an antique store. I think I paid $3 for it, which was super. And this is an original pressing. Now, the vinyl itself's a little bit dirty, and I do need to clean that. But look how clean that record is. I mean, there's no scratches on it. There's a little bit of dirt, but I mean, it's really nice and clean. There's just, other than the dirt there is no scratches. And that is what you want, a really good, clean copy of the record that sounds good, that doesn't have any distortion or clicks and pops, because you don't want that. The next thing you want to look for is the jacket cover. Now, this is something that's a little bit subjective, because it's up to you. You know, as long as for me the record's in really good condition, I don't mind the jacket having a little bit of issues. But for most people, they want a nice clean jacket. And this is something where whoever owned this really did take good care of it. You can see the jacket's nice and clean. There's no, I mean, there's a little bit of wear from it just being so old, but it's in really good shape. There's no splitting. Well, there's a little bit here, but I mean, it's not going all the way across. There's, you know, no issues on the side. It's just a really nice, clean jacket cover. So you want to look for that when you're out at the stores, because you don't want. So guys, I'm sorry, I got a phone call and that totally stopped the recording. But what I was saying is, you just want to make sure you get a nice, clean jacket cover. And really, the way the jacket cover looks gives you a clue into how that person really took care of their records. Because sometimes people store records in a basement or an attic, and the heat warps them or messes up the jacket cover, or they don't know how to store records properly. And when you're storing records, you want to make sure, first of all, that you have your vinyl in a nice protective sleeve like this. This is a high fidelity sleeve. I've talked about these. They really help prevent static and scratches. Those paper sleeves can cause damage to your records. And you want to make sure that you're storing the jacket cover in a nice thick poly piece of plastic. And always, 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 guys, store your records upright on the shelf like this, just like books in a row. You don't want records flat like this. Now, obviously, if you're at the store and you're looking through a bin and you put a couple like that for a few minutes, it won't hurt it. But over the long haul, you don't want to do that, because it's putting too much pressure on your records, and you don't want that. So there's a great example of that here. This cover for the Jimmy Buffett Living and Dying in 3/4 Time is a really poor cover. I mean, you can see that there's just issues on the spine here. There's all kinds of problems here. And then the back has a lot of ring wear. And that ring wear, you can see where the record was actually pressed into the jacket cover and caused that ring wear, because probably there was too much pressure on it and it wasn't well taken care of. Now, for me, the vinyl was in good shape, so it didn't matter that the cover was a little bit messed up. And for you, you have to decide that for yourself, whether or not that's something you want. But especially if it's a double gatefold, you know, even though the outside's bad, the inside picture is still in good shape. And that's also something that you want to look for. You just want to make sure that it's in good overall shape if it's something that you're going to buy. Now, the jacket cover being in better or worse condition is really up to you. Personally, I try to buy things the cleanest that I can, but as long as the record's good, that's what really, really matters. So I also want to talk about, going along with that theme of not taking care of your records, some people back in the day put stickers on the inner paper part of the record here, the center part. And that really can cause some problems, because if it extends over onto the vinyl, now you've got issues, because peeling that is going to peel the paper label right off or cause damage to the record itself. Now, if you notice, this is the Chordats Lollipop record, 45 I mean, and this is in really good condition. So I didn't mind having a little bit of an issue here. And you can see the sticker does kind of protrude onto the dead wax, but it's not in this little area here. If you guys don't know, where there's no music is called the dead wax. But there's no issues, you know, it doesn't extend where the music is. And in that case, I'm okay with that. But you want to look for that if that's something that's important to you, is having a very clean copy, then you don't want to buy something with stickers on it. So a lot of record stores will let you listen to the album in the store, which is really good, because then you can get a feel for if the record is going to play well or if it has issues. And a lot of older records, you really need to do this. Now, sealed records, if they're brand new, probably you can't open it and do that. But if they're used, you can. And you want to go to that vinyl station with your little stack and just listen through it. You don't have to maybe listen to the whole thing, but just make sure overall it sounds good. And that's a very good tip. So make sure you're getting a good clean copy. Make sure the jacket cover looks nice. Make sure the insides, especially where the paper label is, looks nice. And then make sure also that you listen to it in store to just make sure that it sounds okay for you. So you can also see here that some of these 45s will come in these generic paper sleeves. Now, yes, paper is bad for your records, and I am looking for some small fidelity sleeves that work for 45s, and I've yet to find something like that, but I am on the hunt. But you notice this is a generic sleeve versus the Billy Joel Uptown Girl 45 that has the original paper sleeve. So if you're really drawn to the artwork, or this is something you're going to display, you might not want to pick up a 45 that's just in the generic sleeve versus something like this if it's a 45 that you really want and you do want the sleeve. Now, I don't mind so much because I'm not really displaying it. I thought this was cool though. I mean, I love the artwork on this. So it just is really up to you on that, but that is another thing that you want to take into consideration. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about in this video is buying records that are newer pressings or re-releases. I've said this before like 5,000 times on my channel, but I try really hard to buy original pressings if you can, because especially with older music, they tend to compress the sound and change it up when they're repressing it, and sometimes it just doesn't sound the same because they use older equipment when they first recorded it that's not around today. And by changing that, it can really change the sound or affect the sound. Or if they go back and they do some rearrangements, for a particular song that you like, say they added a new famous star on the album of the re-release, it may not be the same as the one you're used to, and you might want that original version. So you want to look out for records like that. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't get something that's newer that's good. I'm not saying that at all, but you do want to make sure that you're getting a good copy. And the reason I say that is because a few years ago, I was looking for Queen. I grew up listening to Queen a lot, and they're a really fun band to listen to. And I was looking for an original pressing, and pretty much every record store said the minute they come in, they're gone. Especially with Bohemian Rhapsody coming out, people were just kind of in this Queen craze, and I just could not get Queen anywhere. So I was in Best Buy one day piddling around while some of my friends were shopping, and I saw a Queen record. Of course, it was one of those re-releases, but it had all the greatest hits on it. And I thought, for $20, that might be kind of fun. I get all the Queen, and then, if I find something later, great, but for now, I've got my fix. Well, that was a really bad idea, because once I bought it and put it on the record player, I don't know what they did to this record, but they totally messed it up. It didn't even sound like Queen. It was horrible. My friends were listening to it too, and they can attest to you that it was just bad. And I don't know what they did to it, but I certainly don't recommend it. And, that's happened with the Beatles box set. When that came out, people just were complaining about the quality being terrible. And, of course, I think they're going back in to kind of possibly fix that because, man, it was awful. But that's something I really learned the lesson the hard way, because now I'm out $20. You can't take it back. You've already opened it, that kind of thing. So when I was in New York, at the beginning of the year, I went before all the COVID stuff started. I was at a really cool record store in Chelsea Market called Eat Market. Eat Records. I'm sorry, not Eat Market, but Eat Records. And they had a Queen record with the original poster. Everything was inside. It was great. I was so excited. And it had some of my favorite songs on it. And I put it on their record player and tested it, and it did sound really good. And I did pay up a little bit, about $25 for it. Most of the time I tend to pay anywhere between $10 to $5, on a record. I don't buy anything really more expensive than that, unless it's something that's super hard to find. And for Queen, it's something that I don't see often, and I was willing to pay up for it. Now, probably it wasn't worth that much, like the Michael Jackson Thriller albums. You'll see people charging $40 for an original copy, and it's like, that's really overpriced because they're everywhere, and you can get them for like $5 to $6 in good condition. But anyway, so I was thrilled. So that's an example of something where it really is worth waiting until you find that perfect record to listen to. Now, on the flip side, I did pick up Chuck Berry Greatest Hits when I was in St. Louis at a record store, and I was listening to this on their record player, and it sounded great. I had no issues with it. It was a really nice copy, and I got a lot of songs that aren't on some of my original Chuck Berry albums because I don't have all of Chuck Berry yet. I'm working on building that collection, but I do have quite a few of his records. I was really excited to get this, and to me it was worth it because it sounded good, and I have all of his hits in one thing. So that's just something else to look for when you're out there in the stores. Really decide what you want as far as a record goes. Are you willing to buy something that has all the hits, or maybe you don't like that artist as much, but you do want them in your music library, so you might go with the greatest hits versus buying a couple of original pressings. It's really up to you, but again, my biggest thing is just make sure it sounds okay. It's not weird or funky. And I did buy the Boston that way too, because my dad and I and my brother listened to this growing up a ton, and we wore out the Boston CD in my dad's car. And this is a great record. It has a lot of wonderful songs on it. And I have never found an original pressing of this. Again, just the rock and roll, classic rock and roll stuff is really flying off the shelves in our local record stores. So I was able to buy a good copy of it. It was a re-release, but you know what? It sounded good. It was one of those things where I could listen to it, and I was really happy with it. And it came on the super cool blue translucent vinyl. So that's kind of fun when you do get some of these newer records, is that they do come on translucent vinyl, or splatter vinyl, or different variants. They're really fun these days. And the last thing I would just say, that when you're out there shopping, try to stay away from picture discs. Picture discs are cool, and if there's one that's collectible that you might want to display, then go ahead and pick that up. But for listening, they really don't sound good, because basically what a picture disc is just the vinyl and then the picture, just thin paper sandwiched in between the other part of the vinyl. And if you've seen a picture disc that's been broken before, like if you Google that, you can see how thin that top layer of vinyl is. And really, the picture disc is literally right under that. And I think the needle picks some of that up, and it just doesn't sound good. So you probably don't want to buy a picture disc if you're going to really listen to that record long term. If it's something you really, really like, try to get another record that's not a picture disc. Now, the colored vinyl doesn't matter, or, black vinyl, but just the picture discs don't sound right. So I would kind of stay away from those. But my biggest thing, again, is just making sure the quality is good. I can't stress that enough. And when you go into a record store, really have fun. Don't just think that you just go to the section you want and you'll find an artist. You never know. Sometimes I have been digging through the new arrivals bin, and there has been something that I want in there. Or there'll be just crates of records that are maybe $5 or buy one, get one free, and they don't sell, so they just put them in a bunch of boxes, under a table, and they're like, hey, you guys can go through these. And I'll sit down there, and that's usually, again, where I find a lot of my 50s records if I don't get them at an antique store, because that's just not selling for the record stores here. And so for me, I get really lucky because maybe I get a good copy of something. So that is worth checking out. When you go in, always hit the new arrivals bin first, in my opinion. I think that's just really worth the time because you might find something cool in there. You never know. So that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope this was helpful and that you were able to learn something. Please, when you can, go out and support your local record stores. I know a lot of them are doing drive-by pickup, or they'll even mail stuff to you, which is great. And that's a good way to start your vinyl collection. And they'll rate the records. So in a case like that, where you can't listen to it in the store, you know, you'll see ratings. So you might see VG, which is very good, or VG plus, that means it's better than very good, or in excellent condition. Or you might see just a G, and that means that the copy's okay, it's just good. And then you might see poor, so that means stay far away from that. So they will rate it, and hopefully that they're honest with their ratings, and then you can get some stuff to get you started while we're all still stuck inside. But I hope you guys stay in, stay safe, binge YouTube, and of course, keep spinning that vinyl.